So now I'm planning how to proceed forward with this, and I noticed that this line has somewhat disappeared, and I do want to have that a little bit more visible, but all I need to do is bring out my Circle Master again and find the circle that I used for that particular globe, and I'm just gonna line it up the best I can, and then lightly sketch in this little edge so I can tell. Actually, I'll kind of come around all the way. We're not going to see that afterwards. So I just want to make sure I have the lines that I need, because we're going to do a little negative painting on this, and you'll see how that works as soon as I get these lines in. So if you've lost your lines, this is all you need to do. Just go ahead and strengthen them up a little bit. I think that was the bigger one, so line that up and bring it right there where that dark part is. And so now I've got a little bit stronger line that I can see and work from. So what I am thinking to do here is darken up the values of the colors in the globe, and then we'll let that layer dry and then proceed forward. So I'm just going to use the same paint colors. I'm going to go with probably a number 6 Utrecht round sablette. This is synthetic. And picking, I believe I went with Quinacridone Gold and the Winsor & Newton Opera Rose in there. So I want to, in order to get the values darker, I want to use a little bit thicker mixture of paint. So when it dries, it will be darker. So I want to follow the lines. I'm just going to try to stay kind of within the boundaries of the color that's already there. If I go over a little bit, it's not going to matter, but I do want to save the lights. So I'll start off with a little water. And I want to stay away from the little light areas that were created by the plastic wrap as well. I might come over part of them. They'll shine through a little bit, but some of it I want to leave light. And then I'm just going to do the same thing as I did before in the initial layer, and that's just dropping in those colors and letting them flow around and mix and mingle together on the paper for the most part. Don't want to do too much brush work. I'm using a light hand as well because I don't want the paint underneath to lift. So using a lighter touch is going to help me with that. And there's the Quinacridone Gold, just dropping that in. And I can see a little areas where there was some lifting. So I'm going to tip my paper so the gravity helps move the paint around. This time I'm going to drop in a little bit of burnt orange as well, just in a couple of places. Get some darker areas going. And I think that I will introduce maybe some alizarin crimson, and that's a Daniel Smith alizarin that I have in there. And just follow those lines. And maybe softening just a touch, just a tad bit. I want there to be shine and sparkle in this, so those light areas are going to be important for that. Then we're coming down here where I put the Phthalo Turquoise, and I'm going to drop some more of that in. Maybe in here too, a little bit here and there. Add a little bit of the glitter mixture. This is going to be darker, this circle underneath here. And again, coming in and softening a little of the edges there. I love how this glitter works. It's so pretty in this painting. There's a little bit of that amethyst, which had the shimmer in it as well. So I'm rinsing off my brush and coming back in with a clean, damp, not wet brush and softening some of those edges. And I've got my little squares here so I can kind of pay attention to that and drop in color here and there where those squares are. And we'll get shimmer. I'm really focused on leaving some of the white, so I don't want to do too much of that. And just let some of those colors bleed together. Now, because this edge is wet and I want to, you know what? No, I think I want to go darker and let those kind of flow together. And then come in with a damp brush and drag that along. And let's add a little silver to that one. A little bit of sparkle. And then a thicker touch of that turquoise. We're going to get a darker edge here. Now I've got a clear view of that line. Here too, some more amethyst. Again, thickening that mixture up. And just following the line of my pencil. And a light touch of the turquoise. Finished with that one for the time being. And then I think what I want to do is bring some of this gold and opera rose over into my globe here and darken up this edge. So I've got wet paper and I'm going to drop in my opera rose and Quinacridone gold right along that edge. And burnt orange. Those three together make a beautiful combination. And we're going to let this dry on its own. I'm not going to dry it with a hair dryer until all that beautiful granulation has happened. Right here, some more of the amethyst. And then if you've noticed, I put the stroke down and then I come back in with a damp, clean brush and draw it out. So I'm not putting, necessarily I want a darker stroke, so I can dilute it a little bit. If it were too light, then adding dark to it is a little bit trickier. So I like to do the darker stroke initially and then If it's too dark, I'll just dilute it. And right there, it was a little lighter, so I had to add more paint to it. And we can continue to layer like this, successive layers, carefully, so as not to lift the underneath paint. So now we're going to let it dry at this point. Add a little bit more of that gold. And before I forget, and it dries too much, I do want to add some gold shimmer to this. And because the gold lightened it up a little bit, I want to add a little bit more Quinacridone gold to that. A little thicker. Now that there's more water on the paper, I need to go thicker with the paint. If I put thin watered down paint on watered down paper, it's just going to dilute and not really do too much. So a thicker mixture in a wet paper is much more effective for not getting diluted and watered down. Okay, so at this point, let's let this dry. I keep saying that, and then I go back in and think, oh, but I'll just do that. I'll just do that. Sometimes that's a good thing you see before that you want to add. Other times you can say, I'm just going to do that and ruin your painting. So it's a really tricky balance. But in this case, I want to do a little bit more of the glimmer and have that sparkle moving around. Okay, so let's let that dry, and then we'll come back and do some successive layers. I will do some more layering in between these lines, like in a negative painting fashion, which is really cool. Like I said earlier in this video, I want darker down here because I am planning on adding some text to this, which will be fun too. So let's take a break and let this dry.